Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Cost Management and FinOps on Azure podcast, hosted by Turbo 360. Today, I'm joined by our guest Saravana Kumar, who's the CEO from Kovai. Today, we're going to talk about Saravana's experiences with cost management for a multi-product company that runs on Azure and some of the challenges he faced. Some of the challenges that led to him developing a product in Turbo 360 to help with cost management. So welcome to the podcast, Saravana. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really
Awesome.
excited to be here.
So Saravana, just give us a really quick introduction to yourself. I think you're a really interesting person, and anybody new to the podcast probably would like to learn a little bit about you and your history.
Yes, sure. Okay. Yeah, my name is Saravana. I'm the founder and CEO of Kovai.co. Kovai.co got multiple SaaS products. We have got 4 different products under our umbrella. We started the company with BizTalk 360 back in 2011, and then we started building multiple products after 5 years. Around 2016, we built a product called Serverless 360, which is now we transforming into under a new brand called Turbo 360. And apart from that, we also have a Document 360 and Churn 360. The first 2 products are predominantly on the Microsoft ecosystem. The first one, as the name implies, it's to do with the BizTalk server. And then Turbo 360 is more on the Azure cloud management platform, and we got multiple offerings underneath that. A bit about my background. I come from a pure Microsoft person, nearly right from the days when I passed out of university until now. We are completely like a Microsoft shop. I did a lot of technical workings during my even today I do a lot of things on the Microsoft ecosystem. That's how I ended up, building the company and finding the gaps, and then building the company, and now scaling it to close to 300 people now. So we got customers across around 2,500 customers and about 150 plus countries. We scaled the team well in the last 12 plus years. We are one of the heavy users of Azure ourselves because all of our products are running on Azure, and we'll be having a lot of conversations around that topic as we progress. Yeah.
So having 4 products all running on Azure, then Saravana, that's pretty complicated from a management perspective. But even if we just focus on cost, how were you originally managing those costs, and what were the experiences that you had?
Yeah, I think running a SaaS product on Azure, it's it's a month on month. You grow the product, you acquire customers, plus also your existing customers consume more and more resources. So it's a typical for a SaaS product to grow, and the underlying infrastructure starts to grow as well. That is how the last few years, we have learned quite a lot in terms of the underlying cost. The cost structure of how things progress in Azure. We learned quite a bit, and in fact, that's what we transformed into a product now. And then we are continuously still learning from our customers.
What about when you first started on Azure before Turbo 360 was around? To help you manage that cost, what did the team used to do?
Sure. I think, to be honest, there was nothing basically. The only option you had was using the standard tools that comes out of the Azure portal. So I think Microsoft acquired a company called Cloudine. I think they got a decent offering, but still, it's not like a full-blown product, and we still find a lot of gaps in terms of the understanding the cost and the optimization. There are some bunch of good products on the AWS side, so it's a cloud cost management is a well-known category now, and a lot of the vendors are focusing more on the AWS. If you look at what they're offering on Azure, it's very minimal, and that is what we found as a gap. So to answer your question, before that, it's more of a manual process. Like the way we normally do it is every month, around 5th or 6th of every month, we receive our Azure bill, monthly bill. And then there is a team we have like a few expert people in the company who understands Azure well and the costing well, and they go through a lot of manual processes and analyzing the data and making sure the cost increase what we see is all in line with the growth what we have seen in that month. And every month we typically find one or two line items that are not in line, and then we take action items, and we ask the team to look into that. So typical things, somebody over provisioning something, somebody not turning off something, somebody putting more logging than what's required. And there are some interesting stories as well, we'll see it later. I think it used to be really manual process. It's all spreadsheets and Word documents, and then that's how we've been running it. We will get some input from the standard Azure portal, but when you have multiple subscriptions and multiple resource groups, it's very difficult to get the consolidated view what you want. I think Microsoft did something with Power BI, and you can do some bits and pieces, but still, it was a lot of manual work before we.
So I guess in the real world, that concept of when you've got 4 products and you've got each product has multiple resource groups and possibly multiple subscriptions for environments, I guess having that consolidated view at a product level becomes really challenging. I'm assuming that's where a lot of the manual work would go.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly precisely what happened, Mike.
So what was the kind of key trigger point for you that decided to build a product to solve that problem? I mean, I know that's really the history of Kovai, isn't it? You've identified a real world problem and built a product to fix that, and then told people about it, and then sold lots of that product.
No, yeah, absolutely. The trigger point is very simple. Like I mentioned, we felt there are a lot of vendors doing things on AWS, but there is nothing much on the Azure side apart from what Microsoft is offering, and there are a lot of gaps in that Microsoft offering, especially when you have multiple subscription, getting a consolidated reporting, and also a lot of little things like you wanted like a nice hierarchical structure of your org, and then your departments and your products, and where each department is spending how much, and you may wanted to get some kind of alerting mechanism when things goes wrong, and also some toolings around, like a scheduling, for example, right? A lot of times you really don't need the resources to be running 24/7, especially on your dev and staging environments. Like a lot of things can be turned off during non-working hours and weekends, and right sizing is another thing, taking a higher and lower. Even today, during this morning we had our monthly Azure cost management call, and there was a requirement, the custom script to be built to do the SQL DB scaling up and down, because there's nothing on the Azure portal to do it. So those kind of gaps still exist. Not all resources can be easily auto scale up and down. So those are gaps still exist on the product. So those are the things where we felt really there's a clear market opportunity, and given the size of Azure, and Microsoft themselves are going more like a cloud first, and they're basically all into cloud, and they are pushing every customer into Azure, and we found there is a big market opportunity to do that. And that's exactly, and also we strongly believe build products when you face the pain point firsthand, then it becomes it's a no-brainer, because you have seen the pain and you know how to solve that pain, and that is exactly what transformed into.
And then I guess you get all the other customers start telling you about the extra things that they need in their context, and suddenly you've got a product that does everything you need. So from the product itself, and tell us some stories about some of the interesting cost insights, or some of the good cost savings you've identified as a team through the journey of doing this.
I think there's one really interesting story with Document 360. We still feel Document 360 is a knowledge management platform, and it's a typical SaaS product where a lot of times you don't the customers, they don't even need to talk to any of us. They can just come, just do the sign up. They can put their credit card in, and then they can start using the product. So I think somewhere beginning of last year, all of a sudden during this it's called monthly Azure cost management cost analysis meeting, I think it was highlighted like our Azure cost gone up by 20%, something like that. Crazy. It's not one of our regular growth. It was like a crazy increase on that month, and we started analyzing what was the reason, and then we figured out. We acquired a customer called Midjourney. People might know, they are the number one generative AI open AI company in the world, similar to ChatGPT but for the images world. And they became our customers without even we realizing, it's a standard sign up. And they have a monthly hit of something in the region of 50 million hits per month is a volume of the documentation what they are serving. And of course what happened was we use the CDN, Azure CDN, to serve the images and the video assets and things like that. And when you have that kind of volume, that CDN cost alone has bumped up to some crazy number. We wouldn't have known, if you didn't have this meeting, we won't even know that thing happened. That's one interesting story, how the cost can go out of control if you don't have processes and practices in place. Yeah. And today, we speak to customers regularly, and we are surprised, a lot of large companies, they don't have a matured processes in place. People buy subscriptions and they buy resources all over the place, and soon it goes out of control. Last month we went for a call with one of the top accounting firms in the world. They literally they know it just went out of control, and they could save millions of dollars just by optimizing certain things. So clearly we can see the cost management is becoming more and more important. And there's also one more important fact it just highlighted recently. Being an IT company, we all know the number one line item when it comes to cost is people, because of course it's a more knowledge oriented industry, and your people are the biggest asset for any software or IT companies. And the second line item now is basically the cloud cost. It's the second line item now. It's a big. If you ask a CFO of any big company, the one thing that keeps them awake is the cloud cost and how to optimize it, because things can go out of control pretty quickly if you don't have processes in place. Yeah.
So I guess that story about the increased growth of that customer, it's really quite fascinating actually, because when you think about it, we always think about cloud from the perspective of you had this really big success story about this new big customer, and actually the cloud really worked for you because their load increase kind of really hit the product hard, but actually it just scaled and grew with it. But actually the trade-off of that is the cost increases, and if you're not all over that, in a way the cost increase could actually damage the business really significantly if you hadn't had the right commercials to support that. I guess for some customers, I guess have you thought that your product being really successful could give you such a big bill it could put you out of business before you know it? It's kind of a risk that maybe people haven't thought of, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We were able to observe that cost. There's a positive side on the cloud, because you are able to serve that customer. But it was not really. If you look at it from a commercial point of view, it's not practical to serve that customer at that price point. I think our self-serve plan is only $600 per month. I guess our CDN bill alone was $4,000 or something like that to serve that particular customer. So now once after seeing that, we went back to the customer, and then we have a much better commercial arrangements. And in fact, now we have a practice in place. Every month we look at it, who are the top hitting customers, and we have a very good we say unlimited. We don't put restrictions. There are soft limits. But clearly, from time and time again, like there'll be like 10 customers out of 2,000 customers will be like crossing that limit significantly, like hitting like millions of hits, and we have a practice to go back and correct the pricing. Yeah, I think as you said, you need to be aware, like things can go out of control pretty quickly, and maybe in some cases it can put you out of business if you're a small company and if you don't have that kind of a financial backing to support it. You can kill it. And it's you can, if you give contributor rights to somebody, or owner or contributor rights to somebody, they can technically go and provision a machine that will cost you like $5,000 a day or something like that, right? People need to be aware of that.
Yeah, we've all seen that, haven't we? So that's really interesting. So you obviously built the product up from solving and addressing your own problems. What was the point where you decided that actually I see this as a problem other people are having, and what made you decide to sell it as a product, and how did you start engaging with other customers?
Yeah, like I mentioned, if a product can solve our own problem first, it's a very clear market validation, right? Because we've been doing this manual work for nearly 2 years with spreadsheets and Word documents and some internal Teams channel and messages, etc. And then slowly we gradually started building the product, and then whatever we are doing manually was transformed into like a more like a product offering, and we know it's serving us well. And then what we did was, then we went to market, and then we pitched in some early customers, we call them design partners, and we brought them in and got the feedback and made them successful as well. And that is how now today, like we are confident. In fact, it's one of the fastest growing in terms of we've got a lot of modules in our product, but this all of a sudden this cost optimization became like a number one bestseller, basically. Because the main reason is we have other modules like business activity monitoring, and then business applications and Azure documented. Those things will require some time for the customers to see the value. Like they need to invest some time, they need to find that the value proposition. But the cost optimizer, you configure today, within like a day, probably the tool will tell you, you can save you 20% of your cost. And, it's a real dollar value. Like, you're spending like, say, $50,000 a month, and you'll say you do this for optimization, and you will be saving like $10,000 a month. So it becomes like a no-brainer.
I think, that's the real kind of the wastage statistics, isn't it? I think sometimes you hear an even higher figure of how much waste customers have on cloud spend that they don't really kind of like look into where the optimizations are. So the tool's all about creating that visibility. So now we've got a tool. Just taking a step back from the tool a second. If you were speaking to a potential customer and you've got the tool that does a lot of good stuff about visibility and monitoring, etc., what do you think are the key sort of people and process aspects that you would recommend to customers to use the tool successfully?
Yeah, sure. I think the tool alone will not solve the problem. That is one problem. Like what we have seen. Like the tool can only provide you some insights and guidelines. So the way what we'll recommend is, in fact, we have something called like a cloud cost optimization workshop, which we are promoting actively. Like it's a combination of the tool and then internal processes, and then to some extent policies as well. If you have a very open-ended policy, that's the first place where you look at saying, okay, people can only provision certain types of resources and certain level of resources. All those things will control some much. And then whatever the guidelines, like the process, similar to the process what we are following, like you should have at least a monthly cadence of checking your the discipline and processes to check on a periodic basis. Once a month, key stakeholders, maybe somebody like a CFO or a FinOps person, and then the technical people involved in the core areas, and then go through the bill, and then use it. The tool will give you will make things easy in terms of insights and pointing out, this is green, this is red, this requires attention, something changed on your environment. A lot of insights will come from a tool, but you still need to have a process and action items you need to put together and then take it forward, because the tool can't just magically fix everything. It can only give you some insights and some action items. you still need to have the process and policies in place as well to tighten it continuously. And I think some of the things will be it's really hard to digest. Like we have even gone back to Microsoft and questioned why this bill is unusual, and we got the money back, credits back, because something, it could be even something, a bug on their system or the way they calculate some things, right? So those are very important. The tool can pinpoint, and then you'll be able to go back.
So I had a good story once actually on the bug front. So we had a scenario where we had Synapse and we had a Spark pool, and there was a bug in Synapse where the Spark pools meant, like, I might get the terminology slightly wrong here, but it basically spins up, does a job, and then it's supposed to release the cores and then go quiet again. And what was happening is it didn't release the cores, so every time a job started, it kept adding cores and it was never releasing them. And you're billed per hour per core. And I think we had this scenario where you had $250,000 in a week was basically the bill, and you didn't find that out until you had the bill came through, and it was one of those ones where it was kind of an all hands meeting. How on earth have we got this bill? And then we didn't know about it at the time because there was no alerting on that area of the architecture. And then in the end, Microsoft refunded it because it was a bug on their side. But it would be, you need to kind of jump on them issues as early as you can, don't you? Which is where the monitoring comes in.
No, absolutely. And at least I would say, like, in our experience, at least 3-4 times we have gone back and got the credit note from. You need to think it's like a software, right? The cost is also a software. Like there could be bugs in it. Maybe the calculation is the way they calculated is wrong, or anything can go wrong. We can't take it for granted. Whatever you see on that bill is exactly what you owe them.
Yeah. So you mentioned a workshop there, because I guess education is a really key piece to people learn to be efficient, really, which is what it boils down to. But do you have any sort of thoughts, because you've got a big history of community activities around Azure and integration? What kind of things are you hoping to achieve in the community to help kind of create the education to go alongside cost management tools?
Yeah, I think from a community perspective, we are doing a bunch of things. The workshop is what we are planning to do, because we found there's a lot of gap in this area, especially it's a still evolving area. The whole Azure, not Azure, just general cloud cost management space, and especially in Azure. So workshops is one thing, like you're planning to do with a small meetup groups in multiple places in Europe. So we have built up a big partner ecosystem from our BizTalk 360 days. So we are working along with them and to go and present, and then they can bring their people, their customers, and we are also inviting people. That's one community activity we are doing. And then we do an annual event called Integrate, which comes in June. We do it in June every month in London. So that is another place where we are trying to showcase some of the things, and then bring the community together. And also things like this podcast, and also we are doing a lot of blogging and activities around educating the content around what can be done. We feel there's not enough substance in this area, when it comes to cost management, and that's what we see it as. We're trying to educate the market, and then parallelly learn and improve the product as well.
So I guess when it comes to that, that you can educate customers as well, but you also kind of need experience and specialization, don't you? So I guess that partner network's really important to you, because obviously you provide the product, but Covite doesn't do consultancy. Yeah. So I'm assuming growing the partner network helps for customers who need more than just a tool but need expertise. That's how you see that growing, maybe?
No, absolutely, because as I said, this whole thing is a combination of 3 different things: the product, processes, and policies. We can only provide the product, but we see there is a gap, and we do not do any consulting engagement. We are a product company. We are focused on the product, so we are leveraging our partners. If you're in a Microsoft ecosystem and you're serving a lot of customers, we'll be happy to talk to you. Like we really wanted to speak and then see like like how the work we can help you with the workshop and help your customers. Yeah.
Perfect. And I guess there's also partners. We'd love to have them share their expertise on the podcast and tell us about their experiences as well. So I think, Saravana, I had a question from a colleague who asked, what's the strangest cost management experience that you've had? I guess that story you told us a little bit earlier was a bit of a strange one, but have you had any other strange ones that you might like to share?
Yeah, sure. We hear all the time, that one was a really big one. Even this morning, during the call, there was every month we'll have an incident like this. Today, for us, the document 360, one of the biggest cost is for the first number one cost is the web apps, because that is where the front end and we serve a lot of requests coming in. And the second biggest cost for us is the storage. That is where the customers, when you're doing writing articles, you have images, videos, and a lot of assets that get stored into the storage, and that's one of our biggest expenses. So this month we saw a real uplift in that in the storage cost, and then we went. I think that the team that did an analysis and they figured out Microsoft has enabled a Defender by default for every storage account. That basically means we don't really need a Defender on the storage, but just because of it's enabled by default, that bumped up the price by, I don't know, some $2,000 or something like that. It's just bumped up. That's again, we turned it off, and then we lost the $2,000. If you haven't noticed it, that's like another $20,000-$30,000 bill at the end of the year. You can see like a small configuration, right? Just one click, you are losing like $20,000 in a year, like that.
So I think we're just about coming up to time for the podcast. One of the things I always try to do, Saravana, is ask you if you have any question that you would like to ask the next guest on the podcast, something about their experiences or what their view is on certain FinOps concepts or cost management challenges. And do you have anything you'd like to share for whoever's next?
Okay, it's a random question. Okay.
Yeah, keep you on your toes.
I don't know. I think there's the general question. Everybody I would like to answer is what are the the processes they follow at the moment to do it.
Well, I think that's a great question, because I find everybody does things a little bit differently, and like if you think about how you described the manual process right back at the start, and some people have an Azure expert who downloads the data and gives it out on spreadsheets, and other people use Power BI, and it's kind of like where were you, how was it working, what were the problems, and where do you want to get to?
Yeah, I think the standard. I think one question definitely I'll ask is, do you have any processes in place to keep an eye on your Azure cost? Is the number one question. And the second question related to that will be, how do you do that? And I'll be interested to learn. Then I think maybe as a community we can learn in a consolidated way. Different people adopt different techniques, and maybe some and we can build a best practice around how do you do that. As I said, the biggest cost, second biggest cost in any company today is cloud cost. So
yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today, and thank you for kind of encouraging and providing the background for us to run this podcast. So hopefully we'll do some really good things with it and create that community education piece that will help every customer out. Thank you for your time today, Saravana.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike, for having me on the show. And I'm sure you'll see some lot of learnings from future guests. And I'm really looking forward to see all the episodes. This is something of a passion for me now, like the whole cloud optimization and cost management. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, great stuff. See you later.
Thank you.